Hi, students. This is Tiffany, your professor, Professor Maury, back for week number 2, and we are on chapter 3 now. Hopefully you should have watched the chapter 2 PowerPoint video. This is chapter 3 PowerPoint video, and it's on police organization and administration. All right. The 7 tasks, this is really important. I actually have 2 different PowerPoints I'm going to show you for chapter 3, one I've done on my own. This is the one from your textbook. And one thing that you have to understand is once you become a cop, you learn all the essential functions of patrol. But then you can apply and test to be a sergeant or a lieutenant, or even go as far as an assistant chief or assistant sheriff or sheriff or chief. And once you get to those top positions, you are more running an organization. You're running a business, just like Walmart or Google or YouTube or anything like that. And so therefore, police organizations must be run as businesses, and they have basically 7 key tasks that they must perform. And there's an acronym that can help remind you. It's called POSD-CORB, and these are the 7 tasks that you have to know. One is planning. That stands for P, so they must be able to plan. They must be able to organize. They must be able to staff. They must be able to direct. C and O is for coordinating, reporting, and budgeting. So POS, CORB are 7 essential tasks. All right. Most police organizations are hierarchies and resemble the military. It's kind of like a pyramid, and I'm going to show you in the next PowerPoint slide. You're going to see how it's like a pyramid. But there's a lot of employees at the bottom, which are mainly your patrol officers, and fewer at the top. And 3 things that are important characteristics of these are unity of command, your rank structure or chain of command, and your span of control. So here's that pyramid I was talking about. Little at the top, 1 chief at the top, 1 deputy chief, generally few to 10 or 20 lieutenants, 20 to 30 or 40 sergeants, depending how big your department is, and you could have hundreds of police personnel. All right, so chief characteristics in the paramilitary structure of a police department is kind of that they use commands. They use 400 codes, strong enforcement of rules and regulations. They don't want you to be an individual. You have to follow the rules and the policies and the law. And if these organizational structures fail, it's because they promote communication only horizontally. So basically, think of that pyramid again along the bottom between the patrol officers, but it doesn't go up top a lot because generally you have to follow a chain of command. And a lot of people don't want to have to follow that chain of command. So they talk to each other, but not the top. Patrol operations have long been regarded as the backbone of the police organization. So patrol is the largest part of the department. You saw that bottom of the pyramid. It's huge. And so as police officers get promoted and go up that pyramid in the organization, they have to remember that they still have to come back down and talk to the officers. The good chiefs and sheriffs that I always saw were the ones that actually came down, spoke to the officers, went on ride-alongs, and was more like, even though they were a chief or sheriff, they still did the role as being one of the guys and one of the girls. All right, investigation bureau. So for those of you that say, I want to be a detective, and for 50% of the time, if you want to be an investigator like CSI, you have to be a patrol officer first. In fact, if you want to go into homicide, basically investigating murders, and finding the bad person, criminal who did it, you got to start out as a patrol officer. And depending on your department, it could take years and years to get there. Investigators, of course, it's not as, even though it's glamorous because of the TV shows, you don't have that same adrenaline rush running call to call because you're just responding to the scenes and you're doing a lot more investigating and taking a long time into one case instead of responding to a bunch of cases. All right, your administrative and staff services. There's a lot of civilians that work in police departments. In fact, it's at least 50% or more of the total number of employees are civilians, aren't cops. It has to do with your administration, technologies, human resources, finance, crime analysis, all these things and many more, such as records, just getting records and evidence. Those are all civilians. Police organizations, they operate in a political arena. That is because, for example, your sheriffs, they're elected, and so therefore it's political because they have to answer to the people. Your chiefs of cities are elected through the city manager and the city council. So therefore, it's very political. Leadership. Sergeants are generally, most departments, you have to be on 3 to 5 years, sometimes 7 years, until you can just apply to test for a sergeant. And basically, the testing is very difficult. You go through a written test, you have to get a certain percentage on, you go through an oral board, and then you take an assessment center. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about police unions. Very important in police work. Police unions and collective bargaining, basically, and there's a lot of unions over teachers and other places, but basically they bargain for police officers over the main things are benefits, time off, sick leave, things like that, and also pay. What the officers get paid if they get inflation each year and they have a contract. Collective bargaining can get pretty adversarial sometimes because the police union represents the police officers and they go into negotiations with the city council or finance or whoever it is, and they're bargaining, and the city doesn't want to pay too much because they have a budget, but then the union wants their officers to make a certain amount and have certain benefits. So sometimes they don't always agree, and cops can't strike, because think about it, if cops basically were negotiating for their wages and they didn't make certain wages, then they could strike and we'd have no police services. So therefore, cops are forbidden to strike. And so if there is an impasse, then basically what ends up happening is if the city and the unions can't agree on a certain part of the contract, then it goes in front of an arbitrator and the arbitrator makes that decision. All right. There's no minimum standards in police departments for police personnel. In fact, most police departments, you just have to have, in order to apply to be a police officer, you have to have a high school degree or GED. You have to be 21. You have to have not been convicted of a felony or a domestic battery misdemeanor crime. And we'll talk about that later and why that's important. But really, you don't need an undergraduate or graduate degree. But what we're finding is in states like Oregon, for example, that has lots of smaller departments, is that there's a lot of competition. And so you may not have your degree, but your candidates you're going against, your competition for the same position, may have not only their undergraduate degree, but their graduate degrees we're finding and military experience. So it's really great that you are getting your degree so that you put yourself at the top of the candidate pool. All right, talked a little bit about CALEA accreditation, which is the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement. And again, a lot of departments participate. It's optional. And it's great because they have employees that come and visit your department and ensure that you have policies and procedures on everything that you do and everything that cops do and investigators do and anybody in the department does. The only thing that's very difficult is a lot of departments can't afford to be a CALEA accredited. So if a department's not CALEA accredited, it doesn't mean that they're not doing everything right. It just means that they do not have the budget within their budgeting city or county or state to do it, because it costs anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 just to be accredited. All right, that's all we have for Chapter 3. Remember about your assignment this week. Ask any questions if you have any through the Ask the Professor or email me. Remember Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 videos along with your assignments, and I will see you next week through our videos for week number 3. Thank you so much and have a great week. Bye-bye.